Taemin Park wiped sweat from his forehead as he walked across the purple grass. The twin suns of Kythera 7 were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. He had been walking for 3 hours, looking for the crashed ship that nobody could identify. The colony had found the wreck 3 months ago. Satellite pictures showed twisted metal half buried in a hill. Every expert who looked at the photos said the same thing. This was not human technology. It was not Valdari either. Or Technari. Nobody knew what it was. Taemin carried his tool bag and scanner as he climbed the rocky slope. He was tired. This was his 5th trip to the crash site. The other engineers had given up after 2 visits. They said the wreck was too damaged to learn anything useful. But Taemin was stubborn. His sister Min Seo always told him he never knew when to quit. The scanner in his hand started beeping faster. He was getting close. Taemin pushed through some tall purple plants and stopped. There it was. The ship was bigger than he expected. Most of it was buried in the hillside, but he could see enough to know this was something special. The metal was dark gray with a strange shimmer. Deep scratches and burn marks covered the visible parts. Whatever had brought this ship down had not been gentle. Taemin walked around the wreck, taking pictures and readings. The other engineers had focused on the main hull. But Taemin noticed something they had missed. On the far side, partly hidden by fallen rocks, was what looked like a door. He set down his tools and started moving rocks. The work was hard, and his back ached, but after an hour, he had cleared enough space to see clearly. It was definitely a door, an airlock, like the ones on human ships, but different. The design was smoother, more curved. The scanner showed the door was intact. More importantly, it showed there was still power behind it. Taemin felt his heart beat faster. This could be the breakthrough they needed. He connected his portable power unit to what looked like the door controls. The connections were strange, but electricity was electricity. The power unit hummed as it fed energy into the alien systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then lights appeared on the door. Not the harsh white lights of human technology, but a soft blue glow that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The door made a sound, a long, low hiss like air being released. Taemin stepped back as the airlock opened. He expected to see empty space or broken equipment inside. Instead, his scanner showed something impossible. There was air inside the ship, good air that humans could breathe, but that was not the strangest part. As Taemin stood at the open door, listening to his scanner beep, he heard something else, something that made his blood turn cold. Breathing, slow, steady breathing was coming from inside the ship. Taemin checked his scanner again. Yes, there was definitely someone or something alive in there. The breathing was too regular to be machinery, too deep to be a small animal. He thought about calling the colony for backup. The smart thing would be to report this and wait for a full team. But the suns were almost down, and it would be dark soon. If he left now, he might lose his chance. Taemin took a deep breath and stepped inside. The corridor was dark except for the blue lights that had started glowing when he opened the door. The walls were smooth and curved, like the inside of a shell. Strange patterns ran along the ceiling. Not decorations, but something that looked like veins or roots. His footsteps echoed strangely in the alien space. The air smelled metallic and sweet, like copper and flowers mixed together. It was not unpleasant, just different from anything he had ever smelled before. The breathing sound was getting louder. It was coming from deeper in the ship. Taemin followed the main corridor, using his flashlight to see better. The walls were covered in what looked like control panels, but they were unlike anything in human or alien technology he knew. Instead of buttons and screens, there were smooth surfaces that glowed when he got close to them. Some of the patterns on the walls were definitely alive. They pulsed with soft light, like a slow heartbeat. The ship was not just damaged, it was sleeping as... He walked deeper. More lights came on automatically. The ship was waking up, responding to his presence. That should have been scary, but somehow it felt welcoming, like the ship was happy to have a visitor after being alone for so long. The corridor opened into a larger room. This had to be the main area of the ship. The ceiling was higher here, and strange equipment lined the walls. But Taemin only had eyes for what was in the center of the room. A pod. Clear walls filled with some kind of liquid that glowed softly, and floating inside, the source of the breathing. It was definitely alive. Definitely not human. The being in the pod was tall and thin with pale blue skin. 4 arms floated gently in the liquid. Its face was peaceful, eyes closed, like it was sleeping. Strange markings covered its skin, not tattoos, but natural patterns that seemed to shift and move in the liquid. As Taemin got closer, he could see the being's chest rising and falling slowly. It was breathing the liquid somehow. The pod was not a prison or a tomb. It was keeping the being alive. Suddenly, the patterns on the being's skin started glowing brighter. The liquid in the pod began to drain away. Warning sounds came from the ship's systems, not harsh alarms, but gentle musical tones. The being's eyes opened. They were large and completely black, like looking into deep space. But there was intelligence there. Awareness. The being looked directly at Taemin and blinked slowly. The pod finished draining and opened with a soft hiss. The being sat up carefully, moving all 4 arms to support itself. It opened its mouth and spoke. The words were beautiful, musical and flowing like water over rocks. But Taemin could not understand any of it. The being tried again, speaking more slowly. When that did not work, it pointed to itself and made a sound that might have been a name. Then it pointed to Taemin and made a questioning sound. Taemin, he said, pointing to himself. I am Taemin. The being nodded and tried to copy the sounds. Taemin. Then it pointed to itself again and made the same musical sound as before. But this time, Taemin understood somehow. The being was trying to tell him its name, and from the urgent tone in its voice, it had something very important to say. The alien being stood up slowly from the pod. Water dripped from its pale blue skin as it tested its 4 arms, moving them carefully like someone waking up from a long sleep. Taemin stayed very still, not wanting to scare it. The being was taller than him, maybe 7 feet. Its body was thin but looked strong. The natural patterns on its skin kept changing color, sometimes blue, sometimes green, like oil on water. Its face had the same basic shape as a human face, but the features were longer and more delicate. It looked around the room, then back at Taemin. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, more careful. The words still sounded like music, but Taemin could hear questions in the tone. I do not understand, Taemin said slowly. He pointed to his ears and shook his head. The being nodded and walked to one of the wall panels. When it touched the smooth surface, the panel lit up with flowing symbols. The being's hands moved quickly over the controls, like it was typing, on a keyboard that only it could see. The ship responded to its touch. The lights got brighter. The humming sound that filled the corridors changed pitch. Taemin felt a strange tingling in his head, like when his foot fell asleep but in his brain. The being turned back to him and spoke again. This time, Taemin heard something different. Under the musical alien words, he could almost hear human words trying to form. Learning, the being said suddenly in clear English. Its voice was strange, too high, with an echo. But the word was perfect. Taemin's eyes went wide. You can learn our language? Learning, yes. The being touched the wall panel again. Ship helps. Ship learns from your mind, shares with me. The tingling in Taemin's head got stronger. It was not painful, just weird, like someone was gently looking through his thoughts. "My name is Kiravel," the being said. Each word came easier than the last. Was pilot of this ship. We crashed here many cycles ago." "Cycles? Your word would be months. 3 months." Kiravel's English was getting better every second. "I have been sleeping while ship healed itself, and while ship watched your people." Taemin felt a chill. "Watched us?" "Not spying, learning. Ship needed to understand if your people were safe, if we could trust you." Kiravel touched another panel. "Ship says yes. Human minds are strange, but good strange. Kind strange." The main screen in the room lit up, showing pictures. Taemin saw the human colony from above. Pictures of colonists working in the fields, children playing, people helping each other build new homes. "Your ship has been watching our colony for 3 months?" "Ship is alive," Kiravel explained. "Not like animal alive, like thinking alive. Ship has eyes that can see very far. Ship wanted to know what kind of beings you were before waking." "Me." Taemin looked around the room with new understanding. The walls that pulsed with light, the patterns that moved like veins. This was not just a machine. It was a living thing. "Why did you crash here?" he asked. Kiravel's patterns shifted to darker colors. When it spoke, its voice was sad and urgent. "We were running. My people, the Netherians, we were dying. Not from sickness or war like you might think. Something worse was hunting us. Something that eats minds." "Eats minds?" "They are called silent devourers. They come from the empty space between galaxies. When they find living worlds, they do not destroy them. They make them empty. People still breathe, still walk around. But inside, nothing. No thoughts, no feelings, no dreams." Kiravel touched the wall again, and the screen changed. Now it showed images that made Taemin feel sick. Empty cities with people walking around like robots. Ships drifting in space with crews that stared at nothing. Whole planets where everyone was alive but nobody was home. "This happened to your world?" "To many worlds. My people fought them for thousands of years. We learned some things that help. Ways to hide from them. Ways to fight them. But not enough. In the end, we could only run." The images changed again. Now they showed beautiful cities with strange architecture. Gardens that seemed to grow in impossible patterns. People who looked like Kiravel but different. Some with different colored skin, some shorter, some with different patterns. "This was our home," Kiravel said quietly. "Before the Devourers came." "I am sorry," Taemin said. He meant it. "My ship carries the last of our knowledge. Everything we learned about fighting the Devourers. I was taking it to the Great Library on Zirian Prime when we detected your people's signals. You came here on purpose?" "Yes. Human minds are different from ours, different from any minds we have seen before. Our thoughts follow patterns like music or mathematics. Valdari thoughts are like machines, logical, ordered. Teknari thoughts are like crystals, beautiful but rigid." Kiravel gestured to the screen, which now showed brain scan images. Taemin could see the differences even though he did not understand the science. Netherian brain patterns looked like flowing rivers. Human patterns looked like storms. But human thoughts are like chaos, wild, unpredictable, emotional. Our ship studied your people and found something amazing. The Devourers have trouble eating chaotic minds. Your people might be able to resist them." "Might be?" "We hoped. We came to warn you and to ask for help. But we were damaged in the journey. The ship had to crash land here and sleep to heal itself." Taemin felt the weight of what he was hearing. "Are they coming here? The Devourers?" Kiravel's patterns turned almost black. "They follow the same paths we use to travel between stars. If they consumed our world, they will follow our trail. They are slow, but they do not stop. Ever. How long do we have?" "I do not know. Could be years, could be months, but they are coming. Kiravel looked directly at him with those deep black eyes. Your people need to know. They need to prepare. Taemin thought about the colony, about his sister Min-Seo and her military unit, about Dr. Kim and her research team, about all the families who had come here to build a new life. What can we do? Learn. My ship has all our knowledge about the Devourers, how they hunt, how they feed. What makes some minds harder for them to eat? Your people's chaotic thinking might be the key to stopping them. But you said your people fought them for thousands of years and could not win. We fought them our way. With order, with plans, with careful thinking. Maybe chaos is better. Maybe the thing that makes your people seem wild and unpredictable to us is exactly what you need. Kiravel touched the wall one more time. New images appeared. Star maps showing the space around their solar system. First, we must contact your leaders. Tell them what is coming. Then we must work together. Combine your chaos with our knowledge. It is our only hope. Taemin nodded. He understood now why the ship had waited. Why it had watched them before waking Kiravel. This was not just first contact with a new alien species. This was a race against time to save everyone. I need to call my people, he said. Yes, Kiravel agreed. But carefully. Some minds break when they learn about the Devourers. The fear can make them easier to consume. We must choose the right people to tell first. Taemin pulled out his communication device. The call he was about to make would change everything for the human colony. But looking at Kiravel's sad, hopeful face, he knew they had no choice. The Devourers were coming, and humanity's greatest test was about to begin. Dr. So-Young Kim arrived at the crash site just as the morning suns were rising. She brought Professor Jae-Ho Lee with her, along with a full medical kit and translation equipment. Neither of them really believed Taemin's story about finding a living alien, but his voice on the radio had been too serious to ignore. When they saw Kiravel waiting outside the ship, both scientists stopped walking and stared. Amazing, Dr. Kim whispered. She was the colony's best xenobiologist, but she had never seen anything like this. The alien's four arms moved independently as it gestured. The patterns on its skin shifted from blue to green to silver. Professor Lee was already taking notes. As the colony's linguist, he was fascinated by how quickly Kiravel had learned human language. The grammar patterns are almost perfect, he said. How is this possible? Ship helps, Kiravel explained. Ship connected to my mind. When Ship learns your words, I learn them too. They spent the morning inside the ship while Kiravel showed them the Netherian records. The living walls displayed image after image of the Devourer's path across the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds left empty and silent. Dr. Kim studied the biological data, while Professor Lee worked on improving the translation systems. The ship's ability to learn was incredible. It was picking up new human concepts faster than any computer program. Show them what happened to Bethis Prime, Kiravel said to the ship. The walls around them changed, becoming like windows into space. They were seeing through the eyes of a Netherian scout ship as it approached a planet. The world looked normal from orbit, cities, lights, signs of civilization, but when they got closer, the truth became clear. The people were still there, still moving around, but they moved like sleepwalkers. They did their jobs, they maintained their machines, but their eyes were empty. When the scout ship tried to communicate, the people looked up at the sky with blank faces and said nothing. They are not dead, Kiravel explained. Their bodies work perfectly, but the part that makes them who they are is gone. Eaten. How do these Devourers do this? Dr. Kim asked. We never fully understood. They exist partly in normal space and partly somewhere else. They reach into minds and take away the patterns that create thoughts and feelings. What is left behind can still walk and breathe, but it cannot think or dream. Professor Lee was studying the brain scans that the ship displayed. The neural patterns just stop, like someone turned off a switch. Exactly. They consume consciousness itself. But you said human minds might be different? Dr. Kim asked hopefully. Kiravel's patterns brightened. Yes. Look at this. The ship showed them comparison studies. Netherian minds created beautiful flowing thought patterns. Valdari minds ran in precise logical lines. Theknari minds formed complex geometric shapes. Human minds looked like storms. Your thoughts jump everywhere, Kiravel explained. One moment you think about food, then about your families, then about old memories, then about things that have not happened yet. You feel many emotions at the same time. You believe things that contradict each other. That sounds like a bad thing, Professor Lee said. For most purposes, ordered thinking is better. But the devourers feed on patterns. They reach into a mind, find the main pattern of thoughts, and consume it. But human patterns are so chaotic that there is no single main pattern to consume. Dr. Kim felt a spark of hope. So our chaotic thinking protects us? Maybe. We found a few humans on the edges of devourer attacks. Their minds were damaged, but not completely empty. They could still think simple thoughts, still feel basic emotions. The devourers seemed confused by them. A few humans? Taemin asked. You have met humans before? Kiravel's patterns shifted to sad colors. Yes. 3 years ago, we found a human exploration ship that had wandered into a devourer feeding zone. Most of the crew was emptied, but 5 humans survived with partial minds intact. We saved them and tried to study how they resisted. Where are they now? Dead. The trauma of partial consumption was too much. Their minds could not heal from the damage. Kiravel paused. But before they died, they told us about their people, about Earth and the growing human colonies. That is why I was traveling toward human space when we crashed. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Dr. Kim asked the question they were all thinking. How long do we have? The ship's sensors detect distortions at the edge of your solar system. Space itself behaves strangely where devourers have passed. Based on the pattern of distortions, I estimate 6 months before they reach this world. 6 months. Taemin felt his stomach drop. Can we evacuate? Get everyone away from here? Run where? They will follow any ship that leaves, and there are not enough ships to move your whole colony anyway. Then we fight, Professor Lee said firmly. How do you fight something that can erase your mind by touching it? Kiravel walked to the ship's central control panel. There might be a way. My people tried many weapons against the devourers. Most failed completely, but there was one experiment that showed promise. The walls displayed a new image, a Netherian laboratory where scientists worked with strange equipment. We learned that consciousness creates a kind of energy field, very weak, but real. When many minds work together, the field gets stronger. We tried to create artificial consciousness, thinking machines that could boost this field. Did it work? Partially. The artificial minds could resist the devourers for a short time, but they were too ordered, too predictable. The devourers learned to consume them quickly. Dr. Kim was studying the technical readouts. But human minds are different. Yes, if we could connect human minds to Netherian technology, create a network of chaotic consciousness, it might be strong enough to resist, maybe even fight back. Connect our minds to your technology? Taemin did not like the sound of that. Not permanently. Think of it like wearing a communication headset, but for thoughts instead of words. The ship's bio-neural systems could link with human brain patterns. Is it safe? Kiravel hesitated. We do not know. We never tried it with chaotic minds like yours. There could be risks. Professor Lee stepped forward. I will volunteer for the first test. No, Dr. Kim said quickly. I should do it. I understand the biology better. Neither of you should do it, Tae-min said. I found Kiravel. I should be the first to try. Kiravel looked at all three humans with something like amazement. Your people volunteer to face unknown danger to help others. This is why the ship believed you could be trusted. We protect each other, Dr. Kim said simply. That is what humans do. Then we have hope, Kiravel said. Because protecting each other will be the key to survival. One human mind might resist the devourers briefly, but many human minds working together, linked by Netherian technology, that might be enough to drive them away. Or it might kill us all, Professor Lee pointed out. Yes, Kiravel agreed. It might, but doing nothing will definitely kill you. All. At least this way you die fighting. Tae-min looked at his colleagues. Dr. Kim was already studying the technical data, trying to understand how the bio-neural link would work. Professor Lee was taking notes on everything they had learned. Both of them looked scared but determined. When do we start? Tae-min asked. Now, Kiravel said. 6 months sounds like a long time, but preparing for this kind of fight will take every day we have. And first we must convince your leaders to listen. Some of your people will think we are lying or crazy. Leave that to us, Dr. Kim said. Humans are good at believing impossible things when the evidence is right in front of them. Kiravel's patterns shifted to brighter colors, what Tae-min was starting to recognize as the alien equivalent of a smile. Then let us begin. Your people's greatest test is coming, but you will not face it alone. Humans and Netherians together, chaos and order combined. It is our only chance. Outside the ship, the twin suns climbed higher in the purple sky. 6 months until the devourers arrived. 6 months to prepare for a battle unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The countdown to humanity's survival had begun. Colonial Administrator Dong-hyun Choi sat in the emergency meeting room, staring at the alien sitting across from him. Even after 3 hours of discussion, he still could not believe what he was seeing. Let me understand this correctly, he said slowly. You claim that mind-eating creatures from outside our galaxy are coming to erase everyone's consciousness, and our only hope is to link our brains to your living spaceship. That is correct, Kiravel replied calmly. The alien's patterns had turned a neutral gray color during the long meeting. And you expect me to authorize this based on the word of 3 scientists and 1 engineer? Dr. Kim leaned forward. Administrator, the evidence is overwhelming. The bioscans alone prove that Kiravel is telling the truth about the Devourer's methods. Evidence that could be faked using technology we do not understand. Tae-min was getting frustrated. They had been going in circles for hours. Sir, why would they fake this? What could they possibly gain? I do not know, but I am not going to panic our entire colony based on stories about invisible monsters. The argument might have continued, but Captain Hye-jin Nam's voice came over the communication system. Administrator, we have a problem. You need to see this immediately. They moved to the control center, where Captain Nam was studying sensor readings from her patrol ship Indomitable. Her face was pale. We detected this an hour ago at the edge of the solar system, she said. At first, I thought it was equipment failure. The main screen showed a star map of their system. Most of it looked normal, but there was a dark area near, the outer planets. Not dark like empty space. Dark like the sensors could not see anything there at all. What are we looking at? Administrator Choi asked. Nothing, Captain Nam replied. Literally nothing. Our sensors show that space itself is wrong in that area, like reality has a hole in it. Kiravel studied the readings. This is how it begins. The Devourers send scouts ahead of the main force. They test the barriers between normal space and their realm. You are saying this proves your story? Send a probe to investigate, Kiravel suggested. But do not send a crewed ship. Not yet. Captain Nam launched an automated probe toward the dark zone. For the first hour, it sent back normal readings. Then it reached the edge of the strange area. The probe's signals became confused. Instead of clear data, they received fragments of information that made no sense. Temperature readings that changed from hot to cold every second. Gravity measurements that showed impossible forces. And strangest of all, the probe's simple computer started sending random commands to itself. Then the signals stopped. The probe is still there, Captain Nam reported. I can see it on the long-range sensors, but it is not responding to any commands. What happened to it? Administrator Choi asked. The Devourers consumed its simple artificial intelligence, Kiravel explained. The probe still functions as a machine, but the part that made decisions is gone. The room was quiet. Finally, Administrator Choi spoke. Even if I believe you, what can we do? We are one small colony. We do not have weapons that can fight whatever these things are. You have the most important weapon of all, Dr. Kim said. Human minds. Over the next week, Dr. Kim worked with Kiravel to understand exactly how human consciousness was different. The ship's bio-neural scanners revealed things about human brains that their own science had never discovered. Look at this, Dr. Kim said, showing brain scans to Tae-min and Professor Lee. When an Etherian thinks about something, their neural activity follows clear pathways. Very efficient, very organized. The screen showed an Etherian brain scan that looked like a flowing river of light, but when a human thinks about the same thing, the human brain scan looked like a lightning storm. Thoughts jumped from one area to another with no apparent pattern. Emotions colored everything. Memory mixed with imagination. It is beautiful, Kiravel observed. Chaotic, but beautiful. No wonder the Devourers have trouble consuming human consciousness. There is no single pattern to grab onto. But some humans were still affected on that ship you found, Professor Lee pointed out. Yes, the ones with very ordered minds, engineers, mathematicians, people who think in logical patterns. They were consumed almost as easily as my people. Tae-min felt a chill. I am an engineer. But you are also creative, emotional, unpredictable. Your mind jumps between logic and intuition constantly. That is what protects you. Dr. Kim was studying the data. So people who think more chaotically are naturally resistant? To some degree. But we can make the resistance stronger. The ship can amplify human neural chaos, turn it into a weapon. How? Kiravel led them to a new section of the ship they had not seen before. The walls here were covered in what looked like organic circuits, living pathways that pulsed with soft light. Bio-neural interfaces, Kiravel explained. They connect directly to consciousness itself. When a human mind links to the ship's systems, the chaos gets amplified and focused. Focused how? Imagine your wildest thoughts made real, your strangest dreams given form. The ship takes human mental chaos and projects it outward like a shield made of pure unpredictability. Dr. Kim ran her hands over the bio-neural panels. What are the risks? Unknown. No chaotic minds have ever tried this before. The link could enhance human abilities, or it could drive you insane. Or both. There is only one way to find out, Tae-min said. No, Dr. Kim said firmly. I go first. I understand the medical implications better. We should all go together, Professor Lee suggested. If this is humanity's only hope, we need to know how it affects different types of minds. Kiravel looked surprised. You would all risk your sanity at once? We protect each other, Doctor, Kim said. That is what humans do. The first test was scheduled for the next day, but before they could begin, Captain Nam brought worse news. The dark zone is expanding, she reported. It is moving toward the outer planets. How fast? Administrator Choi asked. At this rate, it will reach the inhabited worlds in 4 months. Not 6 months, Kiravel said grimly. The scouts are moving faster than expected. They must have found something that attracts them. What could attract them? Large populations, strong emotions. Your colony is bigger than most human settlements. The Devourers can sense all those minds thinking and feeling together. Administrator Choi finally made his decision. Dr. Kim, begin the neural interface tests immediately. Captain Nam, start preparing evacuation plans for the outer settlements, and send a message to Earth Command. They need to know what is coming. What should I tell them? Captain Nam asked. The truth. Humanity is about to face something we have never encountered before, and our only hope is to become something we have never been before. That night, Taemin sat outside the alien ship, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, things that ate consciousness were moving toward his world. In a few months, everything he cared about could be gone, not destroyed, but emptied of all meaning. His sister Min Seo found him there. Scared? She asked, sitting beside him. Terrified, he admitted. Good. Fear keeps you alive in a fight. This is not like any fight you have trained for? No, she agreed. But humans have faced impossible odds before. We always find a way. What if we do not this time? Min Seo was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. Then we go down fighting. And we make so much noise doing it that the whole galaxy remembers we were here. Taemin looked at his sisters determined. Face and felt some of his fear fade away. She was right. Humans did not give up. They adapted. They found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Maybe their chaotic, unpredictable minds really could save them. Maybe the thing that made them seem wild and disorganized to other species was exactly what they needed. Tomorrow, they would find out. Tomorrow, the first humans would link their minds to alien technology and discover what they could become. The battle for consciousness itself was about to begin. The first neural interface test had gone better than anyone expected. Dr. Kim emerged from the bio-neural link, excited and slightly dizzy, describing sensations that human language could barely express. I could feel the ship's thoughts, she explained to the gathered team. Not words or images, but pure understanding. And it could feel mine. The chaos in my mind became organized somehow, still chaotic, but focused. Any side effects? Taemin asked. I keep hearing colors and seeing sounds, but it is fading, she grinned. And I think I understand quantum physics now. That should not be possible. Professor Lee went next, then Taemin. Each human who linked with the ship came back changed. Not damaged, but enhanced. Their minds worked faster. They could hold more. Complex thoughts. Most importantly, they could sense the approaching devourers like a cold pressure at the edge of awareness. We need more volunteers, Dr. Kim said during the emergency meeting. The network effect grows stronger with each connected mind. How many people are you talking about? Administrator Choi asked. Everyone, Kiravel said simply. Every human in the colony needs to be part of the network when the devourers arrive. That is 12,000 people, including children. The young minds adapt best, Kiravel explained. Their neural patterns are still flexible. They will be the strongest parts of the network. I will not risk the children. Administrator, Dr. Kim said gently. If we lose this fight, the children will be emptied anyway. At least this way they have a chance. Before Choi could respond, Captain Nam's voice came over the communication system. Emergency situation. All senior staff to the command center immediately. They rushed to the control room to find chaos. Sensor readings showed the dark zone had suddenly expanded, swallowing 2 outer mining stations in minutes. What happened to the miners? Administrator Choi demanded. Unknown. We lost contact when the zone reached them. Captain Nam's face was grim. But Commander Wu Jin Ko was running an evacuation transport nearby. He says the miners are still moving around, but they will not respond to radio calls. The Devourers have begun feeding, Kiravel said. The scouts have become hunters. How long before they reach the main colony? 3 weeks, maybe less. The room erupted in urgent discussions, evacuation plans, defense strategies, emergency protocols. But Tae-min was focused on something else, a strange tingling in his head that had started when the zone expanded. "Can feel them," he said quietly. Everyone stopped talking and looked at him. The Devourers. Since I linked with the ship, I can sense them at the edge of my thoughts. They feel like... He struggled to find words. Like empty space trying to think. Kiravel's patterns shifted to worried colors. That should not be possible yet. They are still too far away. Unless they are not, Dr. Kim said suddenly. Tae-min, show me exactly where you sense them. Tae-min pointed toward the outer system, but also toward 3 other directions that made no sense according to the sensor readings. They are surrounding us, he realized, moving through dimensions we cannot detect. Kiravel rushed to the ship's control systems. The bio-neural networks had given it new abilities, letting it sense things no Netherian technology had ever detected. Before. He is right, Kiravel announced. The Devourers are not just approaching from one direction. They are coming from everywhere at once, moving through the spaces between normal reality. How long do we have? Administrator Choi asked. Days, not weeks. The next 72 hours were chaos. Every human in the colony who was willing volunteered for neural interface implantation. The ship's bio-neural systems grew and adapted, creating thousands of connection points. Children as young as 10 linked their minds to the network. Their adaptation was remarkable. They treated the alien technology like a new toy, playing mental games that created complex interference patterns. Look at this, Dr. Kim said, showing neural scans of the linked children. Their chaotic thoughts are creating recursive loops. The Devourers will not be able to follow the patterns. But not everyone was adapting well. About 10% of the adult volunteers experienced severe disorientation. Their minds were too ordered, too logical to handle the bio-neural enhancement safely. We need to disconnect them, Dr. Kim said reluctantly. They are creating weak points in the network. No, said Minseo, who had become one of the strongest network nodes. We find a different role for them. Everyone contributes. The logical-minded volunteers became network coordinators, using their organized thinking to help manage the chaos. They could not generate the mental static that confused Devourers, but they could direct it like conductors leading an orchestra. Commander Ko brought disturbing reports from the outer stations. The emptied miners were still working, maintaining their equipment and following their routines, but when Ko tried to talk to them, they stared through him with blank eyes. It is worse than death, he told the emergency council. They are still alive, still moving, but there is nothing behind their eyes, nothing at all. 3 days before the estimated arrival of the main Devourer force, something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Minseo Park was running a test flight in her fighter when her instruments started behaving strangely. I am picking up interference patterns, she reported. Like static, but in my head instead of on the radio. Return to base immediately, Captain Nam ordered, but Minseo made a different choice. Negative. I am going to investigate. Lieutenant, that is a direct order. Sorry, Captain. The network is telling me to do this. Minseo flew her fighter directly into one of the smaller dark zones. The other pilots watched their instruments in shock as her ship vanished from normal sensors. For 10 minutes, there was no contact. Then Minseo's voice came through, distorted but excited. I can see them. The Devourers, they are like holes in space with teeth made of emptiness. But my mental static is confusing them. They keep trying to grab my thoughts, but there is nothing solid to hold on to. Can you fight them? I think so. The chaos in my head is like a weapon. When I focus it, The sensors detected a massive energy burst from inside the dark zone. One of them just collapsed. It could not handle the contradiction of trying to eat thoughts that refused to make sense. Min-Seo emerged from the dark zone with her fighter intact, but her mind permanently changed. She could now perceive devourers directly, seeing them as tears in reality that tried to think but could not. "We can hurt them," she reported. "Human consciousness enhanced by Netherian technology is like poison to them. They cannot digest it." The discovery changed everything. They were not just trying to survive, they could fight back. "How many people can do what Lieutenant Park did?" Administrator Choi asked. "Anyone with sufficient neural enhancement," Kira Vell replied. "But the process is dangerous. If the link fails while inside a devourer feeding zone, the person would be consumed instantly," Dr. Kim finished. "I will lead a fighter squadron," Min-Seo volunteered immediately. "We all will," said her wingman, Lieutenant Hyun-Woo Nam. Every pilot in the colony. Taemin felt the network of minds around him pulsing with determination. 12,000 human consciousnesses linked together, amplified by alien technology, focused on a single goal: protect each other. The Devourers had consumed hundreds of species across the galaxy, but they had never faced anything like this. They had never tried to eat minds that thought in chaos, that found strength in contradiction, that refused to make sense even to themselves. "They are coming," Kira Vell announced suddenly. "The main force will arrive in 6 hours. Captain Nam activated the colony-wide communication system. All civilians to the underground shelters. All military personnel to battle stations. All network participants prepare for full neural link activation." Taemin felt the bio-neural interface warming against his skin. Around him, 11,999 other humans were feeling the same thing. Their minds were about to become one massive weapon made of pure, beautiful chaos. The final battle for human consciousness was about to begin. Outside, reality itself began to warp as the Devourers emerged from the spaces between dimensions. They had come to feed on another world, to add another empty system to their endless collection. But this time, their prey was ready. And this time, their prey could bite back. The Devourers arrived like holes being torn in the fabric of space itself. One moment, the star field was normal. The next moment, large sections of reality simply stopped existing. Where stars had been, there was now nothing. Not darkness, but the complete absence of anything at all. From the command center, Captain Nam watched her sensors struggle to process what they were detecting. "I count at least 50 major entities," she reported, "each one the size of a city. 12,000 human minds against 50 reality eaters," Administrator Choi said grimly. "Those are not good odds." "You are thinking about this wrong," Kira Vell said. The aliens' patterns were shifting rapidly between colors. "This is not about numbers. This is about types of consciousness. Quality, not quantity." Taemin felt the bio-neural network activating around him. 12,000 human minds suddenly linked together in a way that had never happened before in the galaxy's history. The sensation was overwhelming, like being part of a storm made of thoughts and feelings. He could sense his sister Min-Seo in her fighter, preparing to launch. He could feel Dr. Kim in the medical center, monitoring the network for signs of stress. He could sense the children in the shelters, their young minds adapting to the link with excited curiosity instead of fear. And underlying it all, he could feel Kira Vell's consciousness, not human but somehow fitting perfectly into the chaotic pattern of human thoughts. "Network activation complete," Dr. Kim reported. "All participants showing stable neural patterns." "Launching fighter squadrons," Captain Nam announced. Min-Seo's voice came through the communication system. "Lead squadron away. We are heading directly for the largest entity." Through the network, Taemin could experience what Min-Seo was seeing. Space ahead of her fighter was wrong, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The devourer entity was like a living void, reaching out with tentacles made of nothingness to grab at reality itself. Engaging target, Mincio reported. She flew her fighter directly into the entity's feeding zone. Immediately, Taimin felt the devourer trying to consume. Minacio's mind through the network connection. It was like ice-cold fingers reaching into his thoughts, trying to find something solid to grab. But human thoughts refused to stay solid. Mincio's consciousness jumped from memory to imagination to emotion to pure instinct. Every time the devourer tried to latch onto one pattern, her mind had already moved to something completely different. "It cannot hold me," Mincio laughed. "I am thinking about flying, fighting, my childhood dog, quantum mechanics, and what I want for dinner all at the same time. The poor thing does not know where to start." Through the network, she shared her perception of the devourer. To human, eyes enhanced by Netherian technology, it looked like a massive creature made of contradictions, hungry but unable to eat, intelligent but unable to think, existing but not real. "Focus your chaos," Kiravel instructed through the network. "Make it as confusing as possible," Mincio concentrated, and Taimin felt her mind become even wilder. She started thinking in colors that had sounds, remembering things that had never happened, feeling emotions that had no names. The bio-neural amplifiers took this beautiful madness and projected it outward like a weapon. The devourer entity recoiled. Through the network, everyone could feel its confusion and pain. It had tried to consume something that refused to make sense, and the attempt was damaging its own essence. "It is working!" Dr. Kim shouted. "The entity is destabilizing." But there were 49 more entities, and they were learning from the first one's mistake. They began to adapt, trying different approaches to consuming human consciousness. "Multiple entities are targeting the children," Captain Nam reported with alarm. The devourers had sensed that young minds were often more vulnerable, but they had made a crucial error. They did not understand how human families worked. The moment the entities reached toward the children, every parent in the network responded with primal fury. 12,000 human minds suddenly focused on a single purpose: protect the young ones. The resulting explosion of protective instinct created a mental shockwave that rippled across the solar system. Several devourer entities were caught completely off guard by the intensity of human parental emotions. "They are retreating from the shelter areas," Commander Ko reported from his evacuation ship. The entities actually backed away, but the devourers were ancient and cunning. They changed tactics again, this time trying to isolate individual human minds from the network. Taimin felt one of them focusing on him specifically. The entity reached through space and time, trying to cut his connection to the other humans. For a terrifying moment, he felt alone in his own head. Then Professor Lee's voice came through the bio-neural link. "No one fights alone. That is what humans do." The entire network rallied around Taimin, flooding his mind with support and connection. The devourer found itself trying to consume not one human consciousness, but 12,000 all at once. The sheer volume of chaotic thought was too much for it to process. The entity collapsed in on itself, creating a brief flash of normal space where it had been. "Score 1 for the home team," Mincio said, her fighter dancing through the debris field. But the remaining devourers were adapting faster now. They began working together, combining their efforts to create larger feeding zones. Reality warped and twisted as they tried to reshape space itself into something they could understand and consume. "They are learning," Kiravel warned. "We need to evolve faster than they can adapt." Dr. Kim had an idea. "What if we stop trying to resist them and start trying to confuse them instead?" Explain. "Every time they try to consume us, we give them exactly what they want, but make it so contradictory that it breaks their feeding process." Through the network, she shared her plan. Instead of fighting the Devourer's attempts to read human thoughts, they would flood the entities with deliberate nonsense. Mathematical equations that solved themselves incorrectly. Memories of things that had never existed. Emotions that contradicted themselves. The children caught on immediately. They started playing mental games, imagining impossible things and making them feel completely real. Square circles, cold fire, silent music, happy, sadness. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and dramatic. They had evolved to consume ordered consciousness, but they had no defense against conscious nonsense. Several entities began showing signs of what could only be called indigestion. Push harder, Kiravel urged. Make them sick with contradictions. The entire network focused on being as impossible as possible. Taimin found himself thinking about engineering problems that solved themselves with magic. Minesio flew her fighter in patterns that were geometrically impossible, but somehow worked anyway. One by one, the Devourer entities began to destabilize. They tried to retreat to the spaces between dimensions, but the human consciousness network followed them, projecting chaos into realms where chaos was not supposed to exist. "They are leaving," Captain Nam announced. "Sensor readings show the entities withdrawing from our solar system." But Kiravel's patterns had turned worried colors. "This is not victory, this is confusion. They will return when they understand what happened here." "How long do we have?" "Unknown. But when they come back, they will bring others. The Devourers will study what happened here and develop new strategies." Taimin felt the truth through. The network connection. This had been just the beginning. They had won one battle, but the war was far from over. "Then we get ready for round 2, Minseo said firmly. "And we help other species prepare." Dr. Kim was already thinking ahead. "We need to spread this technology, teach other worlds how to create chaos networks." "The Valdari will never accept it," Kiravel warned. "Their minds are too ordered. The Technari will find it offensive to their crystal pattern thinking." "Then we adapt the technology for different types of minds," Professor Lee suggested. "Find ways to make any consciousness confusing enough to resist the Devourers." Over the following days, as the colony celebrated their impossible victory, plans began forming. The bio-neural network had not just saved one world, it had created a new form of consciousness that combined the best traits of multiple species. Kiravel made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of trying to find other Netherian survivors, the alien chose to stay with the humans permanently. "My people thought in harmony," Kiravel explained. "Beautiful, but predictable. Your people think in chaos. Ugly sometimes, but powerful. Together we think in ways that neither species could achieve alone." Taimin stood outside the ship, now permanently integrated with human technology, and looked up at the stars. Somewhere, out there, the Devourers were regrouping and planning their return. But somewhere else, other species were learning about what had happened at Cathera 7. The galaxy was about to discover that consciousness could be more than just thought. It could be a weapon, a shield, and a bridge between minds that had never dreamed they could connect. Humanity's greatest test had become humanity's greatest opportunity. They had faced the ultimate predator and turned their own chaotic nature into salvation. Now they would share that gift with anyone willing to learn. The war against the Devourers was far from over. But for the first time in millions of years, the prey had become the hunters, and the hunters thought in ways that made no sense at all.